Hello and welcome to the Varietal Show. My name is Rory. Varietal is a group of writers from Vancouver, and this is their YouTube channel. And if you look down in the description, you can go to our website and see original works that we've written. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to write some stuff live together because I just like writing. And you notice that the title is about NPCs. If you're not a person who plays a lot of games, I'll have to explain that in a little bit, but for those who do know, I'll just say that it's not a specifically structured and instructive video. I find that it tends to be a little more fun to just be creative together and see how this stuff gets put together just in real time based on our own imagination and fun. So if you came here looking for a video that's like step 1, step 2, step 3 to great NPC dialogue, it's not really how it's going to work. It's just us having fun. There's a chat here, a live chat, that I encourage you to use because you can contribute to the story and we can write it together and have a lot of fun. My name is Rory, if I didn't already say that. Yeah, this is the Varietal Show. We do this Thursdays at 6:30 at night. Well, 6:30 my time, Pacific. I'm in Vancouver, as I said. But I think it's 9:30 Eastern, and then who the hell knows what that is Mountain Time? Like 8:30 or something? I really honestly don't know. But yeah, you can come and join us, and there's a whole playlist of stuff if you want to. If you're not watching this live, down in the description, there will be little timestamps. That's what I wanted to say. That'll take you to certain sections. So if you just want to see our end result, or if you just want to see, the book recommendations or whatever else, you can click on the timestamps, go to wherever it is you want to watch. Hello, Suki and GS. I see you're already in the chat. GS says, good evening, awesome cover picture. Well, thank you. That comes from Unsplash, which is a sort of free stock photo service. I wish I had the name of the person who did it handy. Suki says, hello. Hello, Suki. I haven't seen you in chat for a while. And hello, GS. Okay, so we are going to do, first and foremost, a book recommendation. I know we've skipped out on these as of late. Well, actually, we did one last week, but we skipped out on these as of late. So this is Left on Read. Left on Read is a section where I give you recommendations of things that I've read or currently reading and impressed by. In other words, books that we've read on Left on Read, or movies or video games or whatever else, something narrative. The thing I'm going to pull off my shelf behind me again, my ode to Mr. Rogers, is Fair Use by the band Negative Land. Now, there's a lot of context on this because it's a pretty abstract book. It's nonfiction. And Negative Land was this band from the 80s, specifically, and into the early 90s. And they were always sort of a transgressive, disruptive, political view of art. But political in the sense of sort of making commentary on what they saw as corporate art and whatever else. Anyways, what this book is about, it says Fair Use at the top, and then the subtitle, which just is not showing up well on the camera, is the story of the letter U and the numeral 2. Because it's about a time where they made a satirical cover of a U2 song, where they used... I'm blanking on the name of the song now. They used... I think it's Streets Have No Name or something. And they played it on kazoos, the melody line, and they swapped out some of the drums with broken glass sounds and stuff. They mishmashed and collaged together this very silly version of the song. And in particular, they did something cheeky, which they admit, they probably shouldn't have done. And is the one thing that they say they would have changed going back, which is the cover. The cover is pretty misleading. Right there. That was the cover of the album. And the song itself was called U2, and then that small text underneath, it says Negative Land, and it's got a picture of the U2 bomber on it. Anyways, what happened was they got sued, and as the title of the book says, they saw it as fair use. And to be honest, it seems like it probably was fair use. It's pretty distinct from the original, and it definitely seems to have commentary. But anyways, what they did is they collaged together legal documents they received, newspaper articles they received, interviews. There's a point in the book where they actually interview the Edge, who didn't know it was going to be them, to ask him about it. And the book itself becomes their sort of way of describing how doing something fair use with the culture you grew up with is very difficult and disrupted by big conglomerates that own copyright. And I won't say much more than that, because anybody who watches the show regularly knows that I am writing a paper about copyright and storytelling, not music. But during that research, I had found this book, and I read it, and it is incredibly entertaining. And they do these releases. Okay, I will stop talking about it, but there's one more thing. They would do these press releases, and at one point, they start arguing with their own record label. He's run by Greg, I forget his last name, but he's from Black Flag. And their record label frames them as like wealthy, middle-class people that do music as a hobby. And he keeps emphasizing this. And so in their press release to respond to it, it's done as a short story where they own a private island. And he's like describing how like they get up in the morning and are served, quail eggs and whatever, and their private island surfaces from the ocean and they get on a jet. Like, it's very, very snarky and funny. It has that very distinct Gen X irreverence. It's an absolute delight to read. You can only really buy it off their website, which is negativeland.com or something. No E in the negative. I really, really recommend it. It's an incredibly entertaining and unique book. So that is our Left on Red, which means that it is time for Lit Games. Lit Games is our literature games, and sometimes it's more games than others, because sometimes we have guests and then we'll sort of play back and forth off each other and so on. But today what we're going to do is we're going to try and create some great, dialogue or... yeah, I guess dialogue would be the right thing to say here. And the reason that we're doing that is I've been playing, like about a million other people, I've been playing Elden Ring, which is a video game. And one thing that I really noticed about that fight is that it has what a lot of this game has, which is just the most incredible boss dialogue in it. Big Drew says, I was out last week because I was spending home time with my dad. It was his birthday. Speaking of, happy belated birthday and anniversary, GS and hubby. Oh, that's great to hear. Happy birthday and anniversary to you, GS and hubby, from us as well at Varietal. I've floundered back and forth as to whether I should actually show it, because it's definitely going to get us flagged in the YouTubes if I play you this opening speech. But I kind of want to, because it's so over the top and dramatic. Screw it, I'm going to do it. If this gets, unlisted or whatever, it gets unlisted. People stream video games. It shouldn't be that much of an issue, but you never know. Let me just pull it up here. I'm going to show you NPC dialogue that I really enjoyed anyways. And then we'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing. Come on, where are you? Come on. Work for me. You're going to hear it in a minute. There we go. Why won't you acknowledge that this exists? No, that's not what I want you to do at all. There we are. I found it. Okay. Let's make you visible. Let's make you... This is compelling, right? This is the way to keep people on board. Whatever. I'm not going to show you the whole fight here. I just want to show you a little bit of... I want to show you the two major pieces of dialogue here. So a couple of things going in. Godric the Grafted is the name of this boss, the first major boss in the game. You are known as a Tarnished, because that comes up in the dialogue. You are known as a Tarnished. And a Tarnished is a person who's just of lowly stature, really. And what you're going up against is a demigod. But here's the interesting thing, and I want you, as like people who are interested in writing and how it works and so on, I want you to know that the thing about Godric is he's the weakest of all the demigods, and he's really insecure about it, and he's kind of a coward. Okay, so I'm just going to temporarily pause our music. Let's see me forget to start it again, and let's watch this. Hopefully you guys can hear it.
Mighty dragon, thou'rt a true born heir. Lend me thy strength, O kindred. Deliver me unto greater heights. Well. Tarnished. Plain as a lord. I command thee.
Okay.
I am the lord of all that is golden.
I'm just gonna fast forward a bit. So you fight him for a bit. I want to highlight that line: lowly Tarnished, playing as a lord, because you're trying to become something greater. I command thee, kneel. Big Drew says, "Is this Castlevania?" No, this is Elden Ring. I am about midway through the fight. It's a guess as to when this happens in this video. About midway through the fight, he does something nuts. It's a gruesome game.
Truest of dragons. Lend me thy strength.
All right. If you're curious about it, you guys can you can go and watch the whole thing on YouTube. It's Godric the Grafted. But I wanted to show you guys that. Oh, let's get our music back up there. For a couple of reasons, but not the least of which being just great NPC dialogue. You know, here's a guy you're about to fight. You want to sort of establish character. This is the only thing he says in the game. Those two things and a couple of other little bits that at the end that are just basically him mourning his own death. But you only have those moments to really get to know him personally. And there's a couple of really brilliant imagery things they do there, but the dialogue is so great. Like I said at the beginning, he is a insecure guy. He's the weakest of the demigods. And so you see he's got all those arms on him, and he's taken those from people and grafted them on himself because he worries about how weak he is. So he's trying to make himself stronger by using other people's strength. He's like killing other people and making it his strength. And it's such a wonderful example of a sort of parasitic person who's insecure, just done in this high drama style. And you notice that when he takes the dragon head and makes it his own hand, which is a very hard part of that fight, he points it up at the sky and he says, "Forefathers one and all, bear witness." And what he's trying to do there is the forefathers did not believe in him at all, rightfully so. The man was a coward. But he's trying to prove how powerful he is to these people that just are dead. And I thought about these two patches of dialogue for so long. I was like, I love how much you can get into out of a character, out of only a few things. Like it only says a few things, and that's enough. And so now to sort of address the questions in the chat and the question for anybody who doesn't play games. NPCs are non-player characters, so it's everybody who isn't you in the game. And NPCs can be villains, but they more often than not are, the store clerk that sells you upgraded weapons, or the merchant you meet, or the lady who needs help, or the guy who got lost, or, fetch quests and things like that. They're those kinds of people. And sometimes you talk to them hundreds of times in a game because they sell you everything that you need, and others you only talk to once or twice. But it's an interesting art form in writing to be able to write dialogue for an NPC because you have such small exposure, and you kind of like the temptation I think would be to just make them basically player servants who barely say anything and just sort of agree with you. The problem with that, though, is that the world doesn't feel lived in. It doesn't feel like a real world that takes place when you leave. It just feels like it's a game. So they more and more NPCs over time in games have had to become more and more human and clearly have their own life and arc, but you only have a few pieces of dialogue to do it with. And the other example I'll give is the God of War reboot, or sequel, or however you want to look at it. It's basically a reboot. That came out, I think, 2017 or 2018, is the blacksmiths that upgrade your axe are these brothers that are feuding. So sometimes you'll meet one brother and sometimes you'll meet the other brother. And every time they criticize the other brother's work, but they also ask how they're doing. And it's a wonderful way of trying to build, this little mini arc where they eventually become friendly with each other again, as you go to these different people in the game. So what I want to do is I want us to create an NPC in a fantasy world, and then I want us to have a really simple little arc for them and write some cool dialogue that gets it across. And as far as we get into that is as far as we get. If chat wants to be my player characters, that's great, because then it's just somebody that I can get to respond to. GS says, "This sounds too clever for me." It doesn't need to be that clever. I'll give us an example. We'll start off with something really simple. I think we might have to do more than one character, which means I don't want to dwell too much on any one thing. We'll start off kind of simple. What I want you to think of, chat, is I want you to think of someone that you see regularly, like that isn't a friend or family, like a worker in the world that you see regularly. They're even less than a supporting character, GS. They are literally like the shopkeeper or something. There's something that the game technically needs, but you can, if you want, make something more of it. And I gave you the example of Godric there just to show you how much you can get out of a few lines of dialogue. What era? Well, that's a good question, which means it is time for us to go. On our Litgame where we're creating NPCs, it's time for us to go to our generator. Oh, I see Big Drew's already made a decision there. which we can stick with, actually. I kind of like it. A grocery store clerk or a landscaper. Okay. So let's the other thing I want from chat is some kind of animal. It can be a lizard, a bird, any mammal, a sea creature. I want you guys to pick an animal. We'll start with a profession and an animal, and we'll work from there. Sorry, I'm just getting ourselves back up to where we want to be. There we are. Big Drew says the motorist in the car next to me. We could do a quick one of that. That could be fun later. There's a lot of that in GTA. Okay, so we have a couple of recommendations here. A grocery store clerk and a landscaper. I like both of these. The grocery store clerk is like the classic. The landscaper. GS says what era? We can do multiple eras. It doesn't have to be consistent. I mean, I guess the simplest thing is to start with just sort of high fantasy, that sort of Middle Earth kind of thing. D&D-ish kind of thing. Because one of the things I haven't mentioned is that I am a dungeon master, or a game master, depending on how you note it, for D&D. If you guys play D&D, which I'm sure most of my viewers don't, but if you do, I'm currently running Dia, which is Descent into Avernus. It's about hell. And one of the jobs of a DM or a GM is to come up with those NPCs, and like you can plan some of them ahead. So we're going to kind of go through that process now. But a lot of it you got to come up with on the fly, and I'll tell you about how I do that later if somebody reminds me. So Big Drew says motorist in the car next to me. I already read that. Drive-through restaurant person, clerk, feral zebra, rabid wolverine, sickly calf. Let's do zebra. Okay. I like a landscaper zebra. Okay. Holly's house says there's a guy in my street. He wears a leather, think cowboy trench and hat with feathers in it, and a large walking stick with stuff tied to it. He lives nearby and talks for hours. You have, frankly, an NPC in your neighborhood. He probably has missions. You should go talk to him. Holly's house says he'll tell you anything if you stop what the planets are doing, the ocean tide. He could be like a lore guy. So a thing that happens in games is like there's people that know a lot of lore and answer questions about lore. Let's do a landscaper zebra here for a moment. You guys got great ideas. Let's say you guys are a group of adventurers. I don't know. You pick your class. If you guys want to be a ranger with a bow, or a big knight with a sword, or an assassin rogue or something, you be who you want to be in the chat. You can help play me off this way. You guys have just been hired by a wealthy princess who's been having some problems with their landscaping and doesn't want to deal with their landscaper because they're intimidated by them, but they're pretending they're not. So they've hired you for this little job, chat. And what I want you guys to do is to come down and ask questions of this zebra, and then we're going to try and build a character, some dialogue out of it, and get a sense of who this character is. So, like, for example, I'm going to give a brief description. 8. Or let's do this. The landscaper is 6.5. I don't know how tall a zebra is. 6 feet tall. Went on all fours, but can rise up to at least 10 feet. When it is walking Bipedally. I don't know if bipedally is a word, but bipedal is. Hi, Jenna. How are you? GS was a bus driver. Their whole career was an NPC. That's a good point. So you guys, let's say that chat, you guys have been hired to resolve the bad landscaping from this zebra person. What are you going to ask? Tsuki says 5.5 feet. Okay, so the real thing here with the landscaper zebra is they've got to have something going on. So I'm just gonna kind of inject my own thing. The first thing that comes to mind for me is, why would a landscaper zebra be grumpy? I think it's because they're having money troubles, and so they're taking on too much at once. But they're not gonna say that up front. Okay, GS says stop eating their shrubs. So you as a player come in and you say, "Hey, stop eating your shrubs." What kind of armaments are you carrying, GS? That would be intimidating to a 10-foot tall zebra person. Shrubs of your clients. My zebra is going to respond, "Oh, phooey." I like foy. It's a made-up word, but I like that kind of fantasy lingo. Oh, foy. To at least 10 feet when it was walking bipedally. Hey, stop eating the shrubs of your clients. Oh, foy. The old witch doesn't pay me half as much as she should. I'm just taking some tips. GS says a head clamper. GS pulls their head clamper out and says, I'll shut that mouth for good if you don't. Big Drew says hello to Jenna. Yeah, hello, Jenna. Okay. So what I've worked out so far here is we have this landscaper. They're kind of a zebra, so they're intimidating in stature and probably pretty quick, but they're also sort of low on the food chain. And the other thing I've put in here is this sort of made up working class lingo, because it's a landscaper, so I want to reflect that aspect of it. Holly says, so we're writing this so Rory can make this into a choose your own adventure. You need to select 3 phrases per scene. I think it's just easier for me to write if you guys are throwing in what you would want to say to this. You know, you've been paid a sack of gold to straighten out this landscaper who's destroying her landscape more than helping it. You don't have to take her side, but you can take her gold. So Ofoy the old witch doesn't pay me half as much as she should. I'm just taking tips. So I get a little sense of the dialogue there. There's a kind of defensiveness, but not aggressive. It's sort of like, I'm going to defend myself, but I'm not going to try and tell you off. So we want to keep that tone going. And if there is a shift in tone, this is sort of instructive dialogue. I don't normally do this much, but if there's a shift in tone, it has to be something that comes from the environment then. So we know that the default is they are defensive, dismissive, and kind of passive-aggressive. If they are to become aggressive, I'm going to be looking for something that would make them aggressive. Okay. So, I'll shut that mouth for good if you don't. What would the zebra landscaper say instead? Now, I don't know why you'd need to do a thing like that. The grass is green. And the shrubs grow back. I'm just trying to get a lunch in. You know? Trying to hold down the hunger. Yeah, everybody's being real constrained here. Got to be wild and weird. See, the thing is like if you're doing books, I don't think this should be the case, but for whatever reason, people are a lot more restrained in books. They're less willing to be bizarre and weird and off the wall. Not exclusively, but just as a general trend. But games, for some reason, have way more freedom. For example, the game that I just showed you, Elden Ring. You saw how like serious and high drama, with this gruesome man with many arms carrying big axes and feeling insecure. There's a point in that game where, for no particular reason, you enter a collapsed church, and there's a massive turtle with a pope's hat that talks to you. He's a pretty nice guy too. Like it's they don't really do that much in books and movies. They try to be so consistent and realistic and grounded, but in games, there's so much freedom to just be weird. Big Drew wielding a pneumatic piston gun. See No Country for Old Men. Yeah, I remember that. That's such an intimidating man. Asks, why would anybody want a zebra gardener anyways? What makes you so qualified? My gophers do better work. Okay, I'm just going to put that in, Big Drew. Give me a second here. I hate that it does that. I don't think it's like Word either. Maybe it is. Let me try. I'll see if I can fix that. Paste without formatting. Yeah, there we go. Why would anybody want a zebra gardener anyways? What makes you so qualified? My gophers do better work. Zebra said, GS says, Zebra, but if you follow me behind this well, I'll show you something worth your time. I like that. I'm just going to adjust it a bit to fit more that kind of like unknowing, defensive, kind of, here, I've got something. Before I babble. The landscaper neighed at this and spit at the ground, saying, gophers for pot, or let's say are good for pot and little else. I had a whole crew of them. And they bailed out after a day's work and a week's pay. So I'm continuing this thing of using sort of slang that has no particular meaning, But like you get the sense of it from its context, because I think that's a big thing. Big Drew says, thanks for fixing the typo. That's the only thing I'm here for, typo fixing. Gophers are good for fun. I had a whole crew of them. They bailed out after a day's work and a week's pay. Look, I see she put you up to sweating me. But you can't take blood from a stone. Should I keep it, like, I was thinking he'll say the saying wrong. Yeah, I think that's too subtle. Can't squeeze the blood from the stone. Can't squeeze blood from a stone. I'm already doing double shifts on empty stomachs. You know. I don't know how I decided that was his tag, but that's kind of... I think tags like that are good for dialogue. Because the thing about dialogue is, like, we tend to write dialogue the way that we talk. And when you're trying to write dialogue for something else, it can't just be how a person talks. Because to be honest, most of us talk really similar. And when all you have is the writing in front of you or the voice in your ears, like you kind of have to play up the differences to make them more memorable. In a writing setting, not an NPC game setting, the way that people say things is most of their characterization. Like, you might get a little bit of their description once, but that's not what makes the character who it is. Not just what they say, but how they say it is the image that the reader gets. So it's kind of important that you play up certain features without being too sarcastic or weird or whatever, that demonstrate how that person is different than the next person who talks. I'm already doing double shifts on empty stomachs, you know. Tell you what. I was digging edges on the lawn by the well just this morning. And I found something. I'll let you in on it if you leave me be. GS says he has to neigh or zebra swear. Oh, chat. That's great idea. What is a zebra swear? I'm putting that on chat. Because if there's anything that chat should be good at, it's nonsense and swearing. Jenna says, is it possible to offer a compromise for the zebra? Ask them to stop eating the shrubs, but talk to the employer to give them a raise. Of course it is. How are we going to represent that in dialogue? Jenna, you're in this now. Jenna, if you want, give me a brief description of this fixer character that's speaking to the zebra person, and any armaments they have. You don't have to, but if you want, because we're kind of writing together here. All right. Jenna stepped. Big Drew says zebra swearing is moo, ba, aurora, or oink, and so on. Well, zebras make this really strange noise. They do this kind of like "Mah!" I'm not doing it justice, but it's a kind of bray, almost like a donkey. I've got it. I know what it'll be. Oh, good bray and hay. There you go. Suki says, why compromise when we can cast fireball? And then has an emoji of an explosion and a For those who don't know, that's a D&D reference to, well, in D&D, you can technically do whatever you want. There's mechanics for everything. You can try to like charm a boss or talk your way out of things or whatever. But there is a kind of, the way the game is made, like it's a lot easier to just fight and kill things. You get a lot more chances to do that with you know, resolutions and stuff. It comes down to like 3 or 4 rolls of a dice, whereas winning a fight might be 25 to 40 rolls of a dice, right? So like the odds are better to just fight. And consequently, players tend to just blow everything up that's in their way. Big Drew says, exactly, that's why their cursing is the sound of other animals. Oh, see here. You guys are better at this than me. Okay, well, how about this? Oh, good brain. Hey, gophers are good for pot and little else. The filthy oinks. Almost like a slur, an animal slur. Jenna steps in and says, perhaps there's a compromise. I think it would look bad to know a landscaper was eating their work. But then again, why should you starve if you're doing a full day's work? Yeah, see? This soft mane of a lady. Gets it? I work hard, you know? I'm just taking some tips. Some tips from the rose bushes. I grew them, you know. I grew the little oinks, you know. Just keep using that. Oh wow, there's a lot in here. So GS said had to grab some brain food chocolate. Is that a brain food? I'm gonna use that excuse. I have this massive bag of mini eggs right now, and I feel like I now have a reason to just eat more of them. What could the zebra gnaw on? Like some characters smoke or chew a straw or swirl keys. What could the zebras do? Big Drew makes a sandwich and begins to consume it, sticking a full tongue of chewed food out and mocking the zebra scaper. Zebra scaper. Yeah, do zebras have buck teeths? I don't. I think they have those really flat teeth because I think they kind of mill grass and grain down. Or not grain, like stalks. Jenna says, oh my god, that's great. I was trying to think of something that's perfect. Okay, Big Drew. I'm just going to add that in. When we get to the end, somebody remind me when we get to the end. I want to tell you a story about an NPC interaction that I had that was kind of famous in my group. Big Drew makes a sandwich and begins to consume it, sticking a full tongue of chewed food out and mocking the zebra scaper. Nah, if you're trying to do it well, you gotta grind back and forth. See? bites off another rose and starts chewing. And that way that they do. Big Drew shakes his head. Zebra chews a stalk of wheat. Yeah, I think the zebra should be constantly chewing. I think that's a good trait. Okay, so I'm just gonna look back because man, we ate through a lot of time doing that. The landscaper zebra. Landscaper is at 5.5 foot, 5.5 feet tall. Why can I not decide whether feet or foot is right? Yeah, that's right. It's 5.5 feet tall. When on all fours, but can rise up to at least 10 feet when it walks bipedally. It's one of those days where every word looks wrong to me. Hey, stop eating the shrubs of your clients, says a group of adventurers hired by the princess to resolve a surprisingly small, one might call even tutorial like problem. That's just a joke for me, is what that is. Oh, foy, the old witch doesn't pay me half as much as she should. I'm just taking tips. Jess pulls their head clamper out and says, I'll shut that mouth for good if you don't. Now, I don't know why you'd need to do a thing like that. The grass is green and the shrubs grow back. I'm just trying to get lunch, you know? Trying to hold down the hunger. Big Drew, wielding a pneumatic piston gun, asks, why would anybody want a zebra gardener anyway? What makes you so qualified? My gophers do better work. The landscaper neighed at this and spit at the ground, saying, Oh, good bray and hay. Gophers are good for pot and little else, the filthy oinks. I had a whole crew of 'em, and they bailed out after a day's work and a week's pay. Look, I see she put you up to sweating me, but you can't squeeze blood from a stone. I'm already doing double shifts on empty stomachs, you know. Tell you what, I was digging edges on the lawn by the well just this morning. I found something. I'll let you in on it if you leave me be. Jenna steps in and says, perhaps there's a compromise. I think it would look bad to know a landscaper was eating their work, but then again, why should you starve if you're doing a full day's work? Should you starve? Yeah, see, this soft mane of a lady gets it. I work hard, you know, I'm just taking some tips from the rose bushes. I grew the little oinks anyway. Too many you knows. Anyhow, get some why can I not think of his name? Sam Wise-Ganji in there. Big Drew makes a sandwich and begins to consume it, sticking a full tongue of chewed food out and mocking the zebra scaper. Nah, if you're trying to do it well, you gotta grind back and forth, see? The zebra bites off another rose and starts chewing in that way that they do. Big Drew shakes his head. Zebra takes a pull from his jug of moonshine marked with 3 X's, says Big Drew. Gia says Princess Barfalonia. Big Drew says, I believe the proper plural to be flute. Not sure what that's in reference to. And it's striped moonshine. Call him Zebra Scaper. I like him. I like that. All right. We have like 10 or 15 minutes. Let's do a different one. I know we were into the zebra. But as you can see, like, I'm not really trying to resolve the story. I'm just trying to have some fun with putting together a different way of speaking. So we put together this kind of like working class zebra. We made some coy references to him being an animal. The other suggestion we had here was for a grocery store clerk, but I'm going to put because we have some new people in chat, Give me a creature of some sort. It can be bird, snake, animal, fish in the sea, anything. Even fantasy creatures if you want. And an occupation that's kind of like regular day-to-day kind of occupation, like a mechanic or something like that. That's the two things I need from chat. We'll try to build another one, and we're going to try to make this one sound distinct so that if we put them in a conversation with the zebra, you would know who was talking without it seeing the tags, right? By tags, I mean like zebra said or zebra scaper. Which, by the way, we're going to change it to zebra scaper. So a creature and a banal sort of day-to-day task, and I already see some good ones in there. I'm just gonna get myself a drink of water. Give me a second. There we go. Okay, so Big Drew says Kraken and a boatman. Holly South says, I'm listening but don't feel well enough to contribute. Sorry, no problem. You don't have to contribute. Nobody should ever feel compelled to. For those, who haven't done this before, like, I know Jenna said this was your first time. A dragon or a sheep? Maybe a dragon and a sheep? What about a child of a dragon and a sheep? Don't think about it too much. Let's just think about the character it would create, not how it got created. Don't go too deep on that. How about a dragonborn half sheep who's a boatman? Okay. Rory takes a pull from his moonshine. Just jug of moonshine marked Aquafina. That's straight Vancouver tap water. If you don't know, we have legendary tap water in our area. I'm sure something will ruin that. Holly's house says a shagan, as in a sheep dragon. Well, that is clearly what it is. Jenna says, I like the idea of a grocer or a mail carrier. Let's do... Yeah, I did think of that too, Suki. This reminds me of Donkey and Dragon in Shrek. Let's do the... Well, the grocer's come up twice, so let's do the grocer. I was going to say a boatman, but... Big Drew says, I feel like a dragon sheep would be setting itself on fire. Absolutely, I agree. Grocer... Shagan. A dragon sheep. The Shagan is a 4.5 foot tall. I'm doing this in Imperial for the Americans in the chat. Also because it's kind of hard to always remember the meters on a height that isn't yours. I don't know what 4.5 feet would be. But I imagine they'd be like 1.2 meters. Holly's house says, hey, if Donkey can knock up the dragon in Shrek, anything can happen. I'm just saying it can happen and don't think about it. All right? Or if you do think about it, I expect to have people to do elaborate art. That probably already exists. Shagan would have skin issues. The fleecy parts would irritate the scaly parts, and it would need regular lotion. You guys are spinning off on this Shagan. I feel like the Shagan needs to be like a permanent fixture in this. So the Shagan is a 4.5 foot tall, half dragon born, half sheep. It looks frazzled as the portions of its head and forearm, where the woolly It's not fur, is it? It's wool. Or the woolly hair of its sheep father. There, I solved one problem. Where the woolly hair of its sheep father was most thick. Were also scarred and blackened. From sparks and spittle of its dragon mouth. Okay, we don't want to get stuck on description. Okay, so chat, you resolved your Zebrascaper. You're going to the grocery store. This could be modern day if you wanted. This could be a cyberpunk future. But chat, what are you guys gonna ask? You've just walked into this shop, this grocery shop. There's a shaggin before you. It's looking a little frazzled. And it says, what? Can I do for you? Holly's House says, can it have hilarious sheep teeth? Sure, yeah, I think that'd be hilarious. Oh man, we got a lot here. Okay. Big Drew says 4.5 feet is 1.5 meters. Is it really? Alright. The wool is making the burned area scratchy. Yeah. Holly's House says needs tincture of alloy from the apothecary. Yeah, okay. That can be its mission. They can be out of it because the bigger shop down the street is buying up the supply. Not even a cashier. It's a shaggin' Walmart greeter. Big Drew laughing hysterically says, just what the hell exactly are you? Suki Matsuba says, it should end by breathing a fireball. That's all I know. I think I know how I could work with that. Okay. Big Drew laughing hysterically says, just what the hell exactly are you? Good. I'm not going to keep extending the language. Good, sir. That is mighty intolerant. I am a proud dragon and a peace-loving sheep. Ow. Sorry. My spittle sometimes comes out a little hot. Oh dear. My arm is aflame again. One second. I will help you in... Oh, that stings. 1 second. I have made myself laugh. I don't know if I'm going to get much further, guys. The shaggin is an amazing concept. I mean, we basically have to make this a real NPC. I want art. I want stat blocks. From the back, you hear a sneeze that quickly turns to a crackle of fire and explosion. Smoke billows out from shattered windows. And as the commotion recedes, you hear a soft ow. Holly's house says wool is fire retardant though. Don't bring your science in here, Neil deGrasse Tyson. We're being idiots. Jenna says, I love this shaggin with my whole heart, OMG. I do too! I want more shaggins. Big Drew laughing more. Your house must be a wreck. I'd hate to see what happens when you sneeze. Big Drew collapses into the floor and rolls away laughing. Big Drew, we had the same idea. We had the same idea. I already drew you art. It's not up yet. I'll draw the shaggin if you post the first one. I assume that's Suki talking to Jenna. Shaggin t-shirts on the way. That reminds me, I have to make a Redbubble account. A very kind person made me an ice cream police badge. And if I put it on Redbubble, I'm not going to make any money off it, by the way, unless people buy like 1,000, which is not going to happen. But if I put it on Redbubble, you can buy it as a sticker for yourself. If you are one of the few who enjoyed the meme that we created about a year ago now of Ice Cream Police. Holly says this is some Monster High hybrid shit. Holly says Suki should draw mostly dragon shaggin and GS should draw mostly sheep shaggin. Okay, here's the thing. I don't think we have a ton of time to build on this. I think we already have a pretty clear idea of the character. So I'm going to read back what we got. And then I'm going to tell you a story of a NPC I came up with, an NPC interaction that people really liked when I was doing D&D, and then we'll wrap up. So the Zebrascaper, the landscaper, is a 5.5 feet tall. Is 5.5 feet tall when on all fours, but can rise up to at least 10 feet when it walks bipedally. Hey, stop eating the shrubs of your clients, says a group of adventurers hired by the princess to resolve a surprisingly small, one might call even tutorial-like problem. Oh, foy, the old witch doesn't pay me half as much as she should. I'm just taking tips. GS pulls their head clamper out and says, I'll shut that mouth for good if you don't. Now, I don't know why you'd need to do a thing like that. The grass is green and the shrubs grow back. I'm just trying to get in lunch, you know, trying to hold down the hunger. Big Drew, wielding a pneumatic piston gun, see No Country for Old Men, asks, why would anybody want a zebra gardener anyways? What makes you so qualified? My gophers do better work. The landscaper neighed at this and spit at the ground, saying, oh, good bray and hay. Gophers are good for pot and little else, the filthy oinks. I had a whole crew of them, and they bailed out after a day's work and a week's pay. Look, I see she put you up to sweating me, but you can't squeeze blood from a stone. I'm already doing double shifts on empty stomachs, you know? Tell you what, I was digging edges on the lawn by the well just this morning, and I found something. I'll let you in on it if you leave me be. Jenna steps in and says, perhaps there's a compromise. I think it would look bad to know a landscaper was eating their work, but then again, why should you starve if you're doing a full day's work? Yeah, see, this soft mane of a lady gets it. You work hard. I work hard, you know. I'm just taking some tips from the rose bushes. I grew the little oinks anyhow. Big Drew makes a sandwich and begins to consume it, sticking a full tongue of chewed food out and mocking the zebrascaper. Nah, if you're trying to do that, you gotta grind back and forth, see? The zebra bites off another rose and starts chewing in that way that they do. Okay, so that was our zebrascaper, and again, we're focused on, it's not really a story, we're focused on how it talked, what it did. So let's read our much shorter little Shagan, which is the dragon sheep hybrid we came up with. Don't think too much about it. That's a grocer. The Shagan is a 4.5 foot tall, half dragonborn, half sheep. It looks frazzled as the portions of its head and forearms where the woolly hair of its sheep father was most thick are also scarred, should say as present, and blackened from sparks and spittle of its dragon mouth. What can I do for you? Big Drew, laughing hysterically, says, just what the hell are you exactly? Good sir, that is a mighty intolerant. I am a proud dragon, and I'm a peace-loving sheep. Oh, sorry. My spittle sometimes comes out a little hot. Oh dear, my arm is aflame again. 1 second. I will help you. And oh, that stings. 1 second. From the back, you hear a sneeze that quickly turns to a crackle of fire and explosion. Smoke billows out from shattered windows. As the commotion recedes, you hear a soft, oh, wow. Holly's House says Shagan is number 2 trending on Twitter. Big Drew says Shagan's deep in the scaly, fluffy lampocalypse. If you guys write, like, not too nasty or mean or, you know, racist or whatever fan fiction, I'll read it, of the Shagan. If you want to do short little passages, I'll read it next week. That'd be fun. Right. I was going to tell you guys a story. Okay, so I was running Descent into Avernus, which is this D&D module. Doesn't matter. Anyways, the point is the party was hiding in the basement, and this basement was of this rich and extremely powerful governmental figure who also had to deal with the devil and a bunch of occult stuff going on, and they were sneaking around this basement that had actual devils in it. So they had sort of exhausted all their resources and needed to take a rest, but they're in the building. And at this point, they had set the house upstairs on fire. I mean, this is pretty typical D&D, honestly. It's just, you're the hero, but you usually cause more chaos and death than you've ever stopped. So, like, it's not really clear that you're ever a hero. Anyways, they needed somewhere to hide. And so they crawled into these barrels of wine in a back room. And what was interesting was I'm the DM in this, so I'm every other character but those people who were playing. And there's this interesting mix in the module where guards from the city come into the house, but there's also cultists in the house. Now, the cultists are like scheming, evil people, and that's a pretty easy dialogue to come up with. You're like, we're going to tear your skin off and whatever else. But I thought to myself, there's no reason why just like the city watch or the neighborhood watch would be this way. And so I was like, a lot of these are probably just dudes looking for a paycheck. And so there was this exchange I did where this guy was being told to like look around certain places. And I think the gist of it was he didn't want to do it because he was scared. And so his superior comes along and he's like, you need to check in that room. And he's like, have you seen the things that are around here, man? I don't want to deal with them. And his boss comes along and he's like, come on, man, we got to check everything. This is the lady's house. She's got a lot of pull. He's like, you've got a lot of pull. I'm not opening doors with growling things. And it sounds like nothing, right? But you got to remember, this is like high drama D&D. And I just had this snarky little comment where this guy was like just lipping off and he's like, nah, man, I'm not doing that. And it became one of the most like charming and memorable moments that we ever had in D&D. And I think the thing that I wanted to say, here we go. I should have had this up sooner, because it kind of is. There we go. Unqualified advice. Here's the thing I wanted to say. When you're trying to write like NPCs in a high fantasy world or something, I think it's important to remember that no matter how weird, magical, bizarre, and like stunningly unique the rupture, the event is that's going on, most people are just trying to do their job and probably are like pretty banal and not looking for adventure. They're like, nah, man, I'm not doing that. Nor are they particularly wicked. And I think it's really important to recognize that like any NPC is first and foremost going to behave like a person would in a bus or whatever else. So there's my unqualified advice, so I can claim that I actually taught you something about writing. Oh wow. Okay, so I'm just going to read some chat and then we'll call it a day. So Holly South said, I saw a Chinese film not unlike this one. What, has Shagan in it? Big Drew says Shagan's may be our best creation. I mean, that's tough to say. We've created a lot of stuff over a year of doing this. There's definitely, it's up there because we've created some pretty pointless and not good stuff. Suki says, time to do another romance lit games. How the dragon and sheep first met. I will float it to Avalon because she's our resident romance writer. I don't know if she's going to go for it. Holly's house says, you only say that, Drew, because you weren't here for the original Ice Cream Police saga. Oh, God. Speaking of romance. Holly's house says, my favorite lit game was the evil soul-stealing carnival under the lake at a summer camp. I remember that. Why did that one stand out for you, though, Holly? Suki says, since we're talking about D&D, can we level up now? I'll draw all the Shagans you want for my level 8 perks. I'm not saying no or yes, because it's no. Big Drew says, I'm a level 400 fat handyman. I hit drywall with a +5 sledgehammer assault. Yeah, exactly. Like, not everything is going to be high end. And I think that a lot of the most charming dialogue just comes from the basic principle of what if it was a bored blue collar worker, but some kind of creature that doesn't currently exist in our world. Like, how would that change it? Even just down to like the swears and stuff. And I think that's kind of the cream of interest in an NPC. I think if you can go really far, like you'll sort of develop a little character arc that people can see. We didn't really get to that with these, but it's hard to do that in a short window of time. Holly's house says, I'm only a level 3 bum wiper. And GS says, Mr. GS opened a Disney surprise with a tiny Thor hammer. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for everybody who showed up today and contributed. It was one of the more lively ones we've had, and I had great fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you had fun with the Shagan. If you enjoyed this stream, tell other people about it, because it's about all we can do to keep ourselves afloat here. And remember to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Varietal_lit. I think that's all the official algorithm stuff that I have. But most of all, thank you so much for coming by. I had such fun with you today. I hope to see you guys back here next week at 6:30. And if you want to see or hear some fairy tales, Tuesdays at 6:30, we do that. We had a really good one last Tuesday, just 2 days ago. I think it's probably the best one I've ever read on that show. It does occupy the whole length of it, but if you are interested in a beautiful story that goes in a direction you do not expect, about Norwegian Northern Sea and a boat maker, it's fantastic. I really recommend you guys go and watch it, or you can read it yourself if you want. I tell you in the beginning of the video where to find it. But thank you so much for the Shagans and the wonderful ideas, everybody. Jenna, and it's good to see you today. And Big Drew, thanks for coming back. And Suki, thanks for dropping in. And GS and Holly, it's always good to see you too. You can go where you want. You guys can hang out on the street if you want, but you can't stay here because I got to close up the shop. So get out.